Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. This is Sandra and I make videos all about cybersecurity, having a career in technology, as well as work vlogs. So today I wanted to talk about the top 7 tools to learn for cybersecurity. And I think I made a video in the past about the top 7 skills to have for cybersecurity. So if you're interested in watching that one, definitely check that out in the link below. Okay, so starting off, the first tool is Burp Suite, which I'm sure many of you guys already know about. It is one of the most, if not the most popular tool in pen testing, cybersecurity, ethical hacking, red teaming, etc. So if you guys don't know what Burp Suite is, it is basically an application used for web pen testing, and it has a whole bunch of different tools used for different parts of pen testing. From the repeater to automated scans to the libraries that you can include and basically add even more functionality to Burp Suite, and you can write your own libraries if you want to and import them and use those. So Burp Suite is basically like a all-in-one kind of thing when it comes to ethical hacking or pen testing. But of course there are other tools out there that can also be beneficial to pen testers, but this is just one of the main ones that people use. So those add-ons that I was talking about are called B apps, and basically you can add them into your Burp Suite and add more functionality into them. And it's really nice because they also tell you which ones are more popular. So like if you're a beginner, you can kind of go through the most popular ones and just add them to your Burp. One thing I do want to note though is that Burp Suite is not open source. So basically there is a free community edition that you can get for free, but it is a bit more limiting compared to the professional edition, which costs $399 a year for the license, and then an enterprise version, which is $3,999 per year. So even though Burp is really easy to use compared to its other alternatives, but at a really high level, what Burp basically does is that it sends requests to whatever web application or web server that you are testing, and it receives the responses for you to analyze directly inside Burp, and it basically tracks every single thing that comes in and goes out. So let's say you're trying to send a request with a certain type of header, then you can edit that header directly on Burp and then send it to see what the application does or how it reacts. And that's what makes Burp so convenient, because you can edit directly on there. Basically you can view the UI or the HTML version of the UI directly on Burp, or Burp can just act as a proxy. So whatever you're doing on your web browser, it'll go through Burp and you can analyze whatever requests or responses that you're sending in or getting. There are also a bunch of other things you can do on Burp, like spidering, sequencing, and using the intruder functionality. But again, I don't want this to be a whole video on Burp, because I'm sure there could be a lot of hours just spent talking about Burp specifically. There is an open source type tool that is also popular enough, but definitely not as easy to use compared to Burp, which is Zap, or the Zed Attack Proxy. So you can think of that one as exactly what it sounds like, a proxy that sits between you and whatever web application that you're trying to test. But again, it's not as easy to use, nor does it have as many functionalities as Burp Suite does. But it is free, so if you are kind of a beginner, you can definitely play around with it and check out which one you might prefer for yourself. But at most companies, they're probably using Burp Suite compared to Zap. And I also linked all the apps I talked about down below, so you guys can definitely check that out if you want to read more into them, because I am only listing like the tip of the iceberg for any of these applications, and you can definitely do your own research to learn more about the actual functionalities that they all have. But you can definitely check out the other functionalities that Burp has to offer in the link below. And also Zap, or Zed Attack Proxy, if you guys are looking to just start out with something free to use besides the Burp Community Edition. Okay, the next tool is Nmap. So Nmap is an open source network scanner, and this would be really important for you if you are trying to get into pen testing, specifically because most penetration tests start with an Nmap scan. Of course, it depends on what you're doing and what you're trying to find, but for the most part, Nmap is trying to scan for open ports, any services that are running on those ports, etc. on the host that you're actually scanning. So basically, it can discover hosts and services on a network by sending packets and analyzing the responses that come back to it. The way that I've used Nmap as a beginner pen tester, again beginner, is mostly just to look for the open ports and whatever services are running. I also mostly use them in capture the flag environments, because again, Nmap is sending packets, so whatever system that you're sending the packets to is gonna know that you're sending traffic their way. So definitely be careful on how much you use Nmap in a environment that is like a real production environment, and definitely practice this first on a fake capture the flag environment, so you don't set off any alarms in your company's network or your personal network, because that would just be very bad. For example, if I was doing a capture the flag and then I did an Nmap scan on whatever target that I'm trying to get into, maybe I'll see port 3389 open, which is the port for remote desktop. And that could be really helpful to me, because this could tell me, oh, maybe I should try using Ramina, and maybe there's some kind of remote desktop password that I'm gonna be looking for here. And that kind of gives me a new route to go for. And even though it may not be the correct route, Nmap scans are really helpful in that they show you the open ports. So then you can kind of go through each one and see which one is the most relevant that you could follow. But I also think that it comes with experience, because sometimes that leads me somewhere, but sometimes that could lead me to a dead end. So definitely following your gut while using Nmap is really important too. as well as just having more experience the longer that you use it. So my red team mentor actually gave me some Nmap homework a few weeks ago, and that was the main thing that helped me look into more of the Nmap documentation, because before that I was just using very basic commands. But there's so much that you can do, very detailed commands that you can do on Nmap. Like you can set the timer, make it slower, especially when it comes to targeting a system like a red team would do, because they don't want any IDS systems or intrusion detection systems to go off, you know? They don't want any alarms to go off. So you could actually choose a timer setting on Nmap that makes it so that it sends slower or like sporadically using RNG or a random number generator to kind of time things in a way that they won't set off any alarms on the target side. So definitely look into the documentation for that. I have not read through everything, but that was just one of the main things I thought was really cool. Okay, so the third app is WireShark. So WireShark is the testing cybersecurity type application that I've used the longest, because I actually use that in my networking security classes in college, and it's basically just a packet analyzer, and packets are just pieces of data. So if you have a host that you're checking whatever packets are coming towards it, so anytime traffic hits that website, you can use WireShark to capture that packet and look inside and see what's actually in it. What's really helpful about WireShark is that it also tells you if it's TCP, UDP. It will also help you identify what the packet is. For example, if the application has Kerberos authentication, then you'll be able to see all the specific packets that are coming in for Kerberos in terms of like the through handshake and stuff like that. So basically that makes it really helpful for network troubleshooting, analysis, just learning about protocols and packets and what kind of data comes in those packets. And it's definitely one of the most popular beginner-friendly kind of applications that schools usually teach you. It is also open source, so it's free to use. You can download it on your personal device and kind of start playing around with it. But one thing I do want to note for this whole video is that you cannot try to hack someone else's website that is live and you don't have their permission. That is very illegal, so definitely do not try these things using these tools on someone's network or someone's URL. That is just a disclaimer right there. Do not use any of these tools on someone's network that is live without their permission. But also there are lots of fake websites out there that you can actually do testing on. Like Nmap has a testing page that you can just keep writing Nmap commands to. There's also the Damn Vulnerable Web App that you can also look into. And another thing to note is that Nmap does live on the command line, so there's no UI like Burp Suite or Amina or something like that. So definitely keep that in mind. But also it's really good to learn these command line tools, because honestly the more Linux experience that you have, the better, especially when it comes to pen testing or ethical hacking. Okay, so the fourth tool that I have for you guys, I'm gonna kind of combine together. There's two of them, John the Ripper and Cain and Abel. So these two are both password cracking softwares, but Cain and Abel kind of call themselves a password recovery tool. So I mean, I guess that makes sense if they were used by the right person in the right hands of someone who actually is looking for their password to recover. But basically a password cracker uses a bunch of different ways to crack your password, including dictionary attacks, brute force, as well as just crypto analysis attacks. But Cain and Abel, or Abel, only runs on Windows. It is made for Windows, and John the Ripper was originally made for Unix, but now is available on almost any popular operating system. John the Ripper is also open source. Cain and Abel is freeware, which means it's free to use. So I feel like these two apps are really cool to learn, especially because they are free and you don't have to pay for any licensing. And one story that I kind of wanted to share with you guys about these two apps, since I kind of explained what they do already. Password crackers, they try to find your password based on the hashes of the most popular passwords out there, and then they can also add some kind of randomization using dictionary attacks. But basically my first day at my company during orientation, someone presented and basically did this demo on cracking into somebody's device using John the Ripper. So I don't even remember exactly how they did it, because this went way over my head when I was first starting, but basically they got someone's password using this password cracker and was telling us about, hey, you think your password's secure, but it's just a word and a number that is popular and is basically in every single dictionary attack out there. And yeah, that really spoke to me. But basically he found this person's password and he was able to remote desktop into his device and then basically install a keylogger and be able to take over his device whenever he wanted, like click on things, move the mouse and etc., open applications, view his files. Like he could do anything on this person's device that the other person could. So that blew my mind, and it just goes to show how dangerous these things are, but also how easily someone who is a malicious hacker could get into your network by using these free tools out there. And I'm not saying that these shouldn't be free tools, because I do believe that it helps benefit people in education. But yeah, just keep that in mind. Threat actors, malicious actors are using these tools. They know that they exist. So make sure you secure your passwords, and make sure you use good passwords, a mix of caps, no caps, letters, special characters, numbers, etc. And don't just choose a word and then a number at the end, because that is not good. And it can easily be cracked, especially because a lot of us have passwords everywhere now, and if they hack into one system that doesn't have like the number of password attempts capped at a certain number, and they could just spend all day 24/7 trying to brute force or dictionary attack to find your password. It just takes that one application that you might be using that isn't as secure to find the password for all your applications if you use the same one across multiple platforms. And not to nag you guys about secure passwords and stuff like that, but definitely something to keep in mind since we're talking about this topic. Okay, so the next tool that I want to talk about isn't necessarily something specifically just for cybersecurity, but it is Splunk. So I've been seeing more and more cybersecurity jobs looking for Splunk experience. And if you don't know what Splunk is, at a very high level, it basically captures and analyzes logs and network data. So if you're working for a big company, chances are your company is probably using Splunk to gather all and any machine generated logs and any kind of traffic, any kind of data that is generated by an application is probably being sent to Splunk to be later analyzed or later checked to see if there's anything wrong. So Splunk is basically a software that allows you to search, analyze, and monitor any kind of machine-generated data on their UI. It is a web-based, cloud-based platform, so there's nothing you have to download, but basically all that log data is being sent to Splunk for whatever network admin or network security person or incident response person is going to be checking at a later date to see if anything went wrong with those applications. Splunk is basically a database that houses all the logs. But one thing to note is that Splunk does cost money, and you're probably not going to get Splunk for yourself, on your personal device. But if you work for a company and you get a chance to get some experience using Splunk, or just looking at the UI, trying to see what it does, trying to see how you can query certain things, then that is very, very important, because more and more cybersecurity teams specifically are using Splunk to look at logs, to look at data, to see if anything is wrong, or if a malicious insider threat is doing something wrong. Because all of this is getting checked with logs, and the people who have to analyze it have to know how to query things on Splunk. So I definitely recommend looking into it a bit more at a high level, but they do have a free trial version of it if you guys are interested in checking that out. But at a really high level, Splunk is basically just a data collection platform. They'll collect all your data, put it on one place, make it very easy and fast to search for it. And fast is the keyword, because if you're searching through millions, billions of rows of logs, it can be very, very time consuming. Okay, my battery died, but I am back. But the next one I have for you guys isn't necessarily a tool, but it is Linux, which is the operating system, and specifically Kali Linux, which is a distribution of Linux that is specific for pentesting and ethical hacking. So like I mentioned earlier, the importance of knowing certain Linux command is so important nowadays. Even when I was taking the Security Plus, which is a basic entry-level cybersecurity certification, I think there were still 20 to 30 Linux and Windows commands on there, just because it's so important as a system admin, as someone who works in network security, as someone who is a pen tester, red teamer, etc. It will be important for you to know how to use certain Linux commands to get your job done. So I guess this is kind of like a mix of Linux plus Kali Linux plus learning how to use Linux commands. And all of this is free to use, free to download, so you can just go on Kali Linux and download the distribution directly and then use it on VMware or something, which is also free. And Kali already comes with a huge list of penetration testing applications and tools. It's honestly one of the best places to start if you're kind of just getting started and don't have your own machine set up. And I read somewhere in a blog that Kali Linux is the best distribution to use for pen testers and ethical hackers, unless you're doing something super niche and need some other distribution, or created your own machine and added your own tools. I feel like the way that they worded it was a lot more elegant than that, but you definitely want to use Kali for any testing, any pen testing stuff that you're trying to get into. And on their website, they also have a list of all the tools that they have included, so you don't have to go and find them and download them and etc. So it just makes it so much easier for you. And now I feel like an ad for Kali, but they are not paying me for this. So in terms of Linux commands, I would look up the top 50 maybe most popular Linux commands and start by learning those a little bit. And of course, I'm not saying to go out and being a pro at all of the Linux command line based tools out there, but just knowing what they do at a high level can really help you in an interview, or just talking to someone who is in cybersecurity, or sitting in a presentation at a conference. Which, short plug, I made a video on the top 7 conferences for cybersecurity that you can watch down below. But yeah, if you're sitting in a demo or a presentation session where someone is doing a penetration test and they're using some commands but you have no idea what they are, that doesn't help with your learning, because you don't know what they're doing with that command, and sometimes they don't explain it because they think people in the audience might know it already. And gosh, I have had so many moments like that in conferences, at work, during a presentation. So it's just really nice to have these kind of nuggets of knowledge, because you kind of look through the high level. Like, sure, I don't use Nmap every single day, but I know what it does, and I can talk about it during an interview if someone asks me about the benefits of using it. Okay, so the next tool I have on the list is actually number 7, but I have my laptop right here and I actually have like 5 or 7 more tools on here that I'm just gonna shout out at the end because I just can't talk about all of them. But yeah, tool number 7 is Metasploit. And anyone who does capture the flags, anyone who does pen testing knows Metasploit. And that was, I think, one of the first applications I learned how to use during a capture the flag challenge. Metasploit is basically a pen testing software that has pre-built payloads that you can basically use as a beginner. So if you think of script kiddies, Metasploit sometimes comes to mind, but it is a professional tool. But I definitely use Metasploit as a script kiddie. I mean, I kind of might still be considered a script kiddie, but basically it has everything pre-built. You can look up a vulnerability and try to attack a host with it. And it'll also create the sessions for you. So basically, a lot of the work is kind of already done for you as long as you know how to use the tool. But one thing to know about Metasploit is that it is a very loud application. Yeah, basically just a loud application. So if you're using it on someone's network, they will know. Like any IDS intrusion detection system is going to know that you're using Metasploit on their system, and that makes it really easy for them to just blacklist your IP so you can no longer try to attack them. But of course, do not try to attack anyone live without their permission, and if you are, it should still not be attacking. It should be doing testing. But yeah, because of this, I've talked to my red team mentor about it and just like Metasploit in general, and she kind of is saying that it is a very good tool for learning because you kind of get to see the flow of hacking into something, but you don't really get to see the low level. You're not really focusing on the scripts that I run, you're really just focusing on doing it step by step. It's kind of like a process that you can memorize and then repeat over time, but you don't really get that much learning out of it. And a lot of red teamers like to write their own scripts and come up with their own payloads, and everything in Metasploit is pre-packaged, pre-built a certain way. So because of that, red teamers don't really use Metasploit as much. It's more of a capture the flag tool to learn from. Basically, as a script kiddie, just seeing what an exploit is and how it works and how the process is when you get into someone's actual machine. And that's really the extent of how I've used Metasploit. Metasploit isn't normally used for actual testing, mostly just for learning and a lot of capture the flag challenges. There's a huge list of Metasploit attacks out there, so you can definitely look into their database of attacks. But Metasploit does have a community edition, so you can definitely check it out, download it, make sure it is in a secure way, and again, not trying to attack people. But Metasploit was the app that first taught me the exact steps for how to get into someone's machine without me really knowing exactly what I was doing. But somehow I got into the machine, and you know, like that's really exciting as someone who's just starting out as a beginner. But of course you do want to eventually dig into how did that work and why did that happen, and like what is the behind the scenes that Metasploit doesn't show me that I don't know about. So yeah, because of that, I think Metasploit is a good place to start, but you definitely want to continue your learning using other tools. Okay, so I know that was number 7, but there are a few more that I want to talk about before I go into the extras, which is all of the open source intelligence tools. So OSINT, Maltego, Shodan are kind of the most popular for open source intelligence tools, but there are actually a lot of them out there, and I didn't even talk about Google dorking. So all of these are kind of in the suite of open source intelligence. Actually, not to paint it in a broad brush, but not all of these are free. This is the OSINT one that is free, but there are tools that cost money when it comes to cyber intelligence. For example, Maltego and Shodan. But Shodan is basically a search engine, kind of like Google, but more hacker focused. You can see what people are searching. They call themselves the world's first search engine for IoT or Internet of Things devices. So basically, you can find devices connected to the internet using certain filters, and that may sound kind of creepy, but I mean, it kind of is. And yeah, it's basically just a search engine for Internet of Things for hackers. Hopefully benevolent ones. So like I said, not all of them are free, but Shodan does cost $59 a month, which may or may not change depending on when you're seeing this video. And Maltego is another intelligence tool basically used to try to help white hat hackers to defend their companies, defend themselves, etc. So I would definitely look into those tools if you're interested in some kind of intelligence type roles, because honestly there aren't enough of us out there, and a lot of times people think of cybersecurity as technical, like you have to learn these pen testing tools or you have to know how to write scripts and code. But honestly, you could be someone who really likes writing and researching and doing reports, and then cyber intelligence could be the perfect job for you. But I do have a bunch of other tools that I want to talk about, but since I am out of time, I do want to just list them on the screen right here and read them to you guys, also on my laptop. And this is a non-exclusive list. There are many tools out there that are probably so popular that I did not include in this video because there was just not enough space to include in this video. But these are the tools that I noticed are the most prominent in my 2 years or so in cybersecurity out of college. Again, I'm not someone who has been working in the industry for years and years, but these are just the tools that I see are most popular after talking to my red team mentors, just people overall in cybersecurity. Okay, but some other popular tools are Nessus, Aircrack, Acunetics, TCP num, hashcat, SQL map, etc. So yeah, hopefully this video was helpful to you guys. I know I rambled a lot. Please let me know in the comments below if you think there's something I should add to the list, take off the list. Definitely let me know your opinions on what you think about these applications and maybe even your experience learning them or using them in your real world job or for fun on the side. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys liked it. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on post notifications if you did. I post videos every Wednesday at 2 p.m. and Sundays at 12 p.m. And hopefully I'll see you guys in my next one.